I recognize the Honourable Member for Diego Martin Central.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am honoured once again to stand in this House representing the people of Diego Martin Central, to add my voice to the annual budget conversation, the presentation of the budget. And let me start off by, of course, congratulating the Minister of Finance for his budget presentation, which was made in what we know is a volatile global environment, which understands that we exist in a time, unlike those opposite, we understand that we exist in a time where we have to do as much as we can with the little that we have. We cannot take the windfalls that we have now and spend them recklessly as would have been done in times before, especially by those opposite. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I also want to extend my congratulations and my thanks to the Minister of Planning and Development for her own part in this budget presentation, particularly when it comes to our PSIP. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I listened to the opposition's responses, of course, having had the tone set by the opening batswoman, whose innings can only be described, I suppose, as a football duck, I would not only want to join with my colleague from Lupino Bonaire West.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, 48-4, 48-5, 48-6, with respect to the members' referral to members of this House, reference in this House.
I wonder if we heard the same thing, Honourable Member. Overruled.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. As I was saying, I would like to join with my colleague from Lupino Bonaire West in recalling the words of our party's great founder, Dr. Eric Williams, not only when he said that the alternative to the PNM is chaos, but especially following on what I've just had here, but also on his advice as to how to deal with the braying of barnyard animals. Mr. Deputy Speaker, with over a week now to prepare responses, the House and the nation retreated to presentations that have been short on facts but long on rumshop talk, screeching and snarling.
I would just ask that you rule whether or not this member is suitably attired to speak in the House.
Proceed. Overruled.
Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the member for Oropouche is having gotten it out. He's leaving now. Thank you, sir. Well done. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I said, short on facts but long on rum talk. Imagine, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we were here and we had an opposition leader. We had an opposition leader in her response took particular care to talk about a strategic plan that she had gotten hold of and that was earmarked, had earmarked 2,500 workers to be sent home from Wassa. So, Deputy Speaker, I sit in a government and I have never seen anything like that. So I reached out to my colleague, the Minister of Public Utilities, and I asked him about a strategic plan. What strategic plan was that? Mr. Deputy Speaker, the only strategic plan that I know of that has been authorized or approved by this government is a strategic action plan dated January 2022 that deals with the water supply improvement for the population. The member for Siparia spoke about what she had seen on page 53, so I turned to that. On page 53 of this report, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is no conversation anywhere around retrenching, letting go, sending home, or anything like that. However, it is important to note that in here, under benefits, it says the areas to benefit currently receive a supply 24/1 through the Longdenville booster. Upon completion of the project, approximately 20,000 persons in areas such as Flanagan Town, Brasso, Caparo, Longdenville, Mamaral, Palmis, Ravine Sable, Todd's Road, and Todd's Station Road will receive a 24-level service. So I do understand, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that there must have been something that would have driven the member to refer to these figures. So again, researching, I came upon a letter dated the 7th of May 2012, signed by the then CEO of WASA, Mr. Ganga Singh, and in the appendices to that letter, talking about the rationale for the proposed strategic organizational restructuring plan for WASA. Under the rationale, it says the principal objective is to transform WASA into an efficient and effective customer-focused and performance-driven water utility. Nothing wrong with that, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I think that is what we all want. Therefore, the proposed restructuring plan intends to, and it goes into some very airy-fairy stuff, in my opinion, Mr. Deputy Speaker, nothing that drills down into numbers or plans per se. However, it does say here, reduce the existing staffing levels through various innovative approaches. We knew that what that was VSEP. From 4,736 to not more than 2,500 over a period of 48 months. Mr. Deputy Speaker, who was the Minister of Public Utilities then? The member for Lupino Bonner West? Who was the Prime Minister then? Not the member for Siparia? So this talk as if this is some brand new thing. Under their administration, they were intent on sending home people. Anyway, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm certain that no one in this House was either surprised or expected better from members opposite. They have fed this country in general and their supporters in particular a consistent diet of misinformation, and the last 2 days have been no different. You see, sir, the challenge of disinformation and misinformation, particularly in this digital age, has become increasingly, it has increasingly come into focus globally, and more than ever, and we saw here today and yesterday, is certainly at the fore now. This is a global phenomenon, and it refers to the international spread of false and inaccurate information. We know that we have incidents here where deliberate falsehoods are spread by the agents of those opposite, very much like today, without so much as a murmur from the opposition leader. But I want to remind her that the upholder is worse than the thief. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, high-quality information is critical for the functioning of any democracy. And unfortunately, much of the misinformation that emanates from those opposite is spread on social media. And in such an environment, it's increasingly difficult for citizens to judge the integrity of the information being spewed at them on a daily basis. And moreover, social and digital media platforms amplify and accelerate the spread of misinformation, providing the opposition with tools for propaganda at an unprecedented scale. Mr. Deputy Speaker, misinformation, as I have said, is a threat to any democracy. It can lead citizens to confidently defend factually incorrect beliefs, even to the point of civil unrest. So when someone puts in a position of authority, starts to speak about rioting, and then quietly says afterwards, well, I ain't telling you to riot, but you've told them to riot. When we do that, where are we going as a nation? What do we expect to see? We saw what happened in jurisdictions much further north than here on January 6th. Is that what we are trying to get this country to? Anyway, based on that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I take the position today, I make the simple claim that in my opinion, this opposition with their purposeful misinformation campaign is a threat to the democracy of Trinidad and Tobago. However, sir, recognizing this, and ever mindful of our own sworn duty to uphold the law and to do good for all people of Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Communications in the Office of the Prime Minister has conscientiously set about its task through the various agencies under its ambit to keep the country informed, educated, and wherever possible entertained. Mr. Deputy Speaker, leading the charge in this respect has been the renewed, revitalized, and resurging TTT Limited, which continued to reposition itself on the media landscape during fiscal 21-22. And during the past year, Mr. Deputy Speaker, TTTL remained the premier source of credible and reliable news. Even the member opposite recent, just in her contribution, referenced TTT because she knew that that was where the facts were. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that news is successfully and has been successfully disseminated to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago in a timely and accurate manner. The bold steps taken during fiscal 2020-2021 are beginning to bear fruit as the public is responding favorably to our revamped news products, the introduction of new talent, and the reformatting of various television and radio segments. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the response to the reintroduction of TTT's iconic 12 and Under talent show has been nothing short of fantastic. And in my opinion, again, the choice of local jazz icon Vonnet Bigford to host the program has been a masterstroke and has been met with much acclaim, and the program is off to a flying start. But you see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is also in line with a mandate that has been given to the board of TTT Limited, that it is to return to its original moorings as a home for local content, a supporter of and producer of local content, and most importantly, to be the place where the young people of this nation can see excellence that looks and sounds like them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I can say without contradiction today that TTTL now leads the way on social media amongst all other local media houses. The firsts are racking up, and we are extremely proud of the staff, the management, and the board at TTT Limited. It is the first media house in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean to reach over 100,000 YouTube subscribers, as well as the first local media house to garner over 1 million views on a single video. Also, in the first year of rejoining the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, TTTL has received 2 awards for the series Penny on Point in the categories of Best Entertainment Program and Best Magazine Program at the Caribbean Media Awards 2021. Moreover, Mr. Deputy Speaker, since the launch of TTT on Tuba, which is a platform that aggregates international television channels, persons across Canada can now access its content via their local cable providers. These initiatives have resulted in the viewership of TTT Limited's live channel to grow to over 150,000 online in 1 month via the Tigo app and over 100,000 views via the TTT Live website. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I said, the numbers are in, and the data has shown an incremental growth as well in TTT's television ranking from a top 20 in May 2022 to a top 10 in August 2022. TTT Limited, in all agencies, like all agencies under the remit of the Ministry of Communication, has been charged with the responsibility of reducing its reliance on its annual government subvention. I am happy to report that TTT Limited has embraced this drive to self-sufficiency, and to this end has developed partnerships with regional media entity Sportsmax and the Real-Time International Film Festival in Nigeria through a collaboration with Film TT. Already increased revenues have been realized from the production of local content like the Best Village Series, the Pan Am Aquatic and Davis Cup Championships, as well as our groundbreaking Delving Deeper series. So what is the way forward, Mr. Deputy Speaker? Well, in the ensuing year, TTT Limited will continue to deepen its commitment to bringing relevant content to its audiences as a deliberate strategy to improve its market position. There will be a continued focus on supporting government's communication and the promotion of its services to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And in addition, in support of the development of the orange economy, TTTL will be involved with the co-production with Film TT and the distribution of Mixed Up, which is a local sitcom series, so look out for that. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now want to turn to NALIS, the National Library and Information Systems Authority. Just as with TTT Limited, through this pandemic, NALIS has been in the forefront of producing and disseminating truthful information on all its social media platforms, ensuring that citizens are kept abreast of all the latest developments. Throughout this pandemic, NALIS was able to use its geographic spread of public and school libraries to ensure that no child went without the requisite learning material, thus exemplifying government's declared intention that no child will ever be left behind. Mr. Deputy Speaker, through its partnerships with the various diplomatic missions, the National Library building, located just a stone's throw away, has become a beehive of cultural activity and another center for the performing arts. In fact, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if you were to just take a walk down Abercrombie Street, you will see on the wall of the library a most beautiful mural. This mural was done by the Colombian artist Marta Cecilia Pinilla Perdomo, together with two local artists, I believe out of UWI, a Miss Shireen Raghubir and a Miss Shania Warris. This mural depicts the coming together of the Caribbean region and Latin America, linked together by the Caribbean Sea, and proudly proclaiming that there is more that unites us than divides us. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I only wish the members opposite would take pattern from that sentiment and stop trying to divide this country with their us and them separatist rhetoric. It is very, very unfortunate that as part of that, the member from Shogunas East would have come here recently to speak about, or just came here, my apologies, to speak about the National Enrichment Center, to make a huge to-do about it should be opened, and what we have not done, without recognizing the fact that in June of 2015, her government rushed to open a shell building, nothing in it, no systems in place for it to be operational, only to cut a ribbon going into an election to talk about we have opened the National Enrichment Center. Nothing was done, Mr. Deputy Speaker. You should go to your own website, ma'am, and it is on your own website.
Please, please, members.
My apologies, Mr. Deputy Speaker. My apologies. I refer to you.
Members, again, we are in the chamber, and you must give respect to the chair. Both.
My apologies, Mr. Deputy
Right,
Speaker.
and again, address the chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to move to Analysis Co-locations Libraries project, which allows for the creation of satellite libraries with more flexible library hours to accommodate programs, community activities, and literacy development. These satellite locations are also providing assistance with access to government services for adults and homework support for children. So already co-located libraries can be found in the Mount Hope, Mount Lambert, Beetham Gardens, and Barataria community centers, as well as in St. Helena as a joint program with the Kiwanis Club in that area. I'm extremely happy to have received continued support in this budget for the program, and we are excited to work alongside the Ministries of Sport and Community Development, Digital Transformation, Public Administration, and Youth Development and National Service. And I want to give the assurance to MPs on both sides that they can look forward to similar facilities being provided in their communities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm also very happy that the member for Mayaro is still in the chamber, because I would like to report that the completion of the Mayaro Public Library's base building is imminent, leaving just the fit out of the furniture and equipment to be done. One of the striking features of that public library is, and it is one that will be replicated in Diego Martin and La Horquita when those public libraries are completed, is the provision of commercial space within the confines of the building. I'm happy to add, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the current MP for Mayaro, my good friend, and I have toured the building, and we have both expressed satisfaction with what we have seen and with the plans for commercialization. And I know that the MP will be working with NALIS to provide potential tenants for that building. However, you see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that proposed building for that proposed Mayaro Public Library was more than 10 times the size of the original building. In my opinion, it was clearly intended to ensure that somebody benefited handsomely from the reward of a contract to build an immense building without any thought to what its real purpose was. However, through thought, through purpose, we now have looked at this library. The actual library is now confined to the top floor without any loss of service, while the entire ground floor will now, as I said, be offered as commercial space. Very much like TTT Limited, Mr. Deputy Speaker, NALIS is already sold on the idea of reducing its reliance on its annual subvention from this government. And through initiatives such as these, it is moving in the right direction. And in the same vein, Mr. Deputy Speaker, NALIS is moving speedily ahead with the implementation of the provisions of the Marrakesh Treaty, which was developed to facilitate access to published works for persons who are blind, who are visually impaired, or otherwise print disabled. Act 14 of 2020 identifies NALIS as the authorized entity within Trinidad and Tobago that, according to Section 12A2, may reproduce, distribute, communicate to the public by any means, or lend an accessible format copy or supply the accessible format copy to another authorized entity or a beneficiary person. Mr. Deputy Speaker, implementation of the Marrakesh Treaty will mean that blind, visually impaired, and print-disabled persons can increase their ability to become even more productive members of this society and not have to limit their aspirations because of a lack of access to information. Over time, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I anticipate that because of this, there will be a decrease in demand for government assistance from some of these persons, who will now have become more financially independent. NALIS will also be able to further enhance this country's already high standing on the international stage, at this time as a leader in equal opportunities for the blind, visually impaired, and print disabled. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in fiscal 2022-2023, in addition to its co-location drive, NALIS intends to commence construction of public libraries in the underserved areas of Diego Martin, La Horquita, and Toco. The Toco Public Library in particular will focus on cultural, learning, and recreational opportunities with quiet spaces for study and information seeking, places to collaborate, and multifunction spaces for events and programs, traveling exhibitions, lectures, lifelong learning opportunities, and digital literacy. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this was done in collaboration with the MP for the constituency, and it is my hope, it is my expectation that he will be very pleased with this project when it is completed. And that is because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it will provide a new venue for a range of community activities and appeal to people of all ages, occupations, and lifestyles. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I spoke about digital literacy, and that is a critical plank of NALIS's outreach and has been for quite some time. And to this end, numerous programs are being executed in public libraries throughout Trinidad and Tobago, geared towards bridging the digital divide that we acknowledge exists. NALIS, therefore, is partnering with the Ministry of Digital Transformation to provide access through its locations for the advancement of the government's digital transformation agenda. And equally important, NALIS has signed MOUs with YTEP and the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service to ensure that all students and lecturers are exposed to the vast array of resources available at our 22 public libraries. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to turn to the Freedom of Information Unit, which is also located within the ambit of the Ministry of Communications. Like TTT Limited and NALIS, the Freedom of Information Unit is part of the information architecture of the Ministry of Communications, ensuring accessibility and availability of information to the national community. But before I go any further on the work of this very important unit, I want to state categorically, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that it never was, it never has been, and it never will be the position of this government to deliberately withhold information from the public that ought properly to be in the public domain. And while there are those who harp about restrictions on information and make a song and dance about its accessibility, Trinidad and Tobago is ranked number 25 on the World Press Freedom Index for 2022. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is a phenomenal achievement when considering that this is placing out of 180 countries in the world. And in fact, Trinidad and Tobago ranks above first world countries like the USA and the United Kingdom in this international index. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in fiscal 2021-2022, the FOIA unit facilitated the training of over 400 persons drawn from the Public Service Academy, from Heritage Petroleum Limited, and the Ministry of National Security. And this training guided public authorities in understanding their obligations to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. This training also resulted in increased compliance from public authorities to the FOI Act and will reduce litigation due to breaches of the Act. It will also accelerate transparency in government and promote open government and accountability. In fiscal 22-23, OPMC, the Office of the Prime Minister Communications, will upgrade the capacity of the Freedom of Information Unit to allow for increased training of public authorities, to allow for education of the public or further education of the public, and improved policies and procedures for the administration of the FOI Act. The continuation of training for public authorities will lead to increased compliance from public authorities and greater transparency in governance, as I have said. But furthermore, improved understanding of the Act by the public will empower citizens, as there will be greater public participation in government affairs, and the citizenry will be more informed about the plans, the policies, and the projects of this government. The National Archives of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the National Archives is the custodian of our history, the custodian of the story of Trinidad and Tobago, the custodian of the artifacts and journals that tell the story of us as a transplanted people. During fiscal 2021-2022, the management of the National Archives completed a draft National Records, Information and Archives Management Policy, along with the legislative drafting guidelines for the development of legislation for records and information management. And when implemented, this policy and legislation will establish a regulatory framework and guidelines for the governance of all records, information, and archives in the public sector, from creation to final disposition, regardless of form or media. It is envisaged that the Freedom of Information Act, the Data Protection Act, and the Electronic Transaction Act, and any other records-related legislation would be harmonized by this policy and legislation, which will serve as the overarching legislation for all records in the public service. This policy and legislation will also assist in government's initiative of digital transformation of the economy, and it will ensure standardization of records management in the public service, which will facilitate interoperability in the electronic environment. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as the custodian of our history, it is important that the National Archives is in possession of, as far as is humanly possible, all the historical data that speaks to our evolution as a nation. So to this end, the National Archives is actively pursuing all available avenues to retrieve or gain access to this country's archival records, which are held overseas, mainly by former colonial powers. This includes the purchase of digital copies, collaboration with related embassies and high commissions, and participation in international fora on this topic of shared archival heritage. The citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have a right to be able to access all relevant records locally for research, education, and an understanding of their identity and a sense of self. And this is the overarching, or this is the raison d'etre, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the National Archives' pursuit of our archival history. Additionally, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in fiscal 22-23, the National Archives will develop an online searchable catalogue with access to already digitized and digital records. The digitization of government media assets project is also poised for expansion in fiscal 23, where government media archives, video, audio, photography of all types, spanning several decades, belonging to various agencies under the OPM Communications, will have their audiovisual media collections digitized and eventually made available for preview through dedicated online portals. To support that thrust, the National Archives will establish a trusted digital repository through the introduction of digital preservation software to protect, secure, and monitor digital records in the long term based on the Open Archival Information System ISO standard. Mr. Deputy Speaker, moving to the government printry. Like all divisions under the ambit of the Ministry of Communications, the government printry is also undergoing its own share of modernization through digitalization. One of the more telling facts, or one of the more telling impacts of this modernization, Mr. Deputy Speaker, will be the imminent launch of the government printry's own dedicated website, www.printry.gov.tt. And when launched, ministries, departments, and divisions will be able to download the general forms used throughout the public service. Forms like the forwarding forms, minute sheets, other charges, vouchers, departmental vouchers, deposit vouchers, and others. What will happen, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that citizens of Trinidad and Tobago will also be able to make online payments via the new website for gazette notices, publications, and the like. And the purchase of documents sold by the sales department will be paid for online and downloaded, or paid for online and collected at the government printry. All of this resulting in expedited processes in accessing forms and documents from government printry, which will lead to increased access to forms from ministries, departments, and divisions, as well as citizens. In addition to that, the modernization and digitalization of the government printry's equipment continued to the end of fiscal 2022 with the purchase of a digital duplicator to increase the output of print-on-demand requests. This new equipment will significantly reduce the wait time for print-on-demand products, such as small amounts of specialized forms, programs, or documents. This newly bought digital duplicator will be able to produce these types of documents within a significantly shorter time frame without having to go through the older printing process. And this will also lead to increased efficiency at the printry and decreased wait times by citizens to receive their requests. I anticipate, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that in fiscal 22-23, the government printry will purchase a high-speed digital web press capable of printing various documents, which will include receipts books for the control of accounts and books such as draft estimates, among others. This purchase will result in less printing errors, the elimination of pre-press, the option to fully computerize their operations, and a reduction in printing time, and of course, greater customer satisfaction. It will also allow for the personalization of documents such as barcodes and personal or ministry information. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have deliberately left the work of the Information Division and Communications Division for last because they are the two units that basically bring everything together. The mission of the Ministry of Communications is simply to promote open government through centralized, timely, and accurate communication to engage and empower citizens. Our vision is to be the leader in credible government and public information. So to this end, the Information Division has in its possession state-of-the-art studio state-of-the-art audio-visual equipment, which can now provide real-time information to our multiple stakeholders and effectively meet the challenges brought on by the explosion of social media use. The OPMC can now broadcast information in real time to other ministries, media outlets, and the ministry's social media sites, thereby offering a more comprehensive service to other ministries, allowing them to quickly disseminate much-needed information to their respective audiences in a direct response to the ever-growing need for the population to have factual information as it happens. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the resounding success of this government's Agri-Forum and Expo, showcasing the absolute best this country had to offer to the region and to the hemisphere, as well as our 60th anniversary celebration, is owed in no small part to the roles played by the multiple agencies in the Ministry of Communications in support of the Ministries of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, Ministry of Housing, Tourism, Planning, and all others. So when I hear the opposition leader coming to this house to talk about growing food insecurity in the region in an attempt to fool farmers into believing that those on that side care about their needs, I ask her and I ask them, where were you when the region came together in Napa and in the Queen's Park Savannah? Where were you when the meaningful conversations about food security in this country and the region were taking place? I tell you where you were not. You were not there contributing. I tell you where you may have been, probably in some dark room planning how to spin and undermine it all, because that is what they do, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in furtherance of its mandate to be the leader in providing credible government and public information,
I stand on Standing Order 48.6, please. Right? Probably in some dark room plotting how to undermine. That's a very much an improper motive expressed by the Honourable member.
Please, members. Overruled.
late to the party as always. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in furtherance of our mandate to be the leader in providing credible government and public information, in fiscal 22-23, the Government Communications Division will launch its Week in Review television series. The pilot for this series has already been created, and once approved, the new format is expected to increase public engagement with information about the work the government is doing through all its ministries for the citizens of this blessed republic. This new format will now include an on-camera host in an effort to make the segment more interactive and conversational. This newest initiative will be in addition to the interactions we currently have via print and social media. Additionally, in fiscal 23, the Government Communications Division will continue to work with corporate communications units across all ministries, divisions, and agencies to improve our responsiveness to feedback, to all feedback in the public domain. This will enable us to improve our service levels and enhance the public's communication and experience with the respective arms of government. This initiative, Mr. Deputy Speaker, will be supported through inputs from all ministries, divisions, and agencies and their public media platforms, newspapers, television, radio, social media, digital broadcasts, and of course, websites and blogs. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am here first and foremost as a Member of Parliament for the constituency of Diego Martin Central, and it would be remiss of me to not thank the various ministries who have this year positively impact the constituents who have, for various reasons, required the assistance of the state and reached out for that assistance through the MP's office. So let me first begin by thanking the Minister of Sport and Community Development for her assistance through the National Commission for Self-Help Limited. In addition to those already assisted, we are currently working to bring much-needed assistance through the emergency repair grant to residents of Pitty Valley and Cocorite, as well as a much-needed community project in Simeon Road. In addition to that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, through the Empower program, a cohort of young men are currently benefiting from mentorship and the sharing of life skills. Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me also express my thanks to the Minister of Housing and Urban Development through the HDC and their home improvement grant in particular. I had a letter to bring, but unfortunately I've misplaced it. My apologies, Minister. I will deliver it to you personally. I also want to thank the Minister of Public Utilities through the Residential Electrification Assistance Program. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this program is a much unheralded program, and I want to thank him for the assistance he has given to numerous persons in my constituency who have had their homes rewired through the assistance of this program. Mr. Deputy Speaker, much like all MPs inside here, I think that I should extend my thanks to the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, through NAMDEVCO, who enabled us in Diego Martin Central to distribute some 4,500 hampers to the worst affected during the COVID-19 period. And also to the Minister of Works and Transport, through small but critical and far-reaching URP projects in the communities of Kokoja, Ravine Road, Store Drive, Cooperative Drive, and Waterhole. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm certain that you would have gleaned from my presentation that the work of the Ministry of Communications, executed through its various agencies, is multifaceted and far-reaching. This work has not been made any easier by an opposition who religiously on a Sunday, wantonly on a Monday, and brazenly on every other day of the week purposefully inserts into the national consciousness a diatribe of misinformation, deliberate half-truths, and innuendos.
Silence.
Imagine, just a short while ago, the member for Caroni East came here to continue the narrative of vaccine hesitancy that has been a mantra during COVID-19. Member, I want to ask you, what did you all do other than continuing to the undermining of our hard work, the government and the public health officers? What did you all do in coming here to continue this narrative of vaccine hesitancy? But you see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we understand their strategy very well. We understand that they have learned their lessons from Cambridge Analytica very well. And we know that this is to bombard the national population with as much misinformation as possible, while shielding their talking heads from any real and discerning journalists prepared to ask them the very hard questions about their roles in the many scandalous events which continue to bedevil this country. But I know my job at the Ministry of Communications is not to chase after their smoke and their mirrors. We know that the opposition's mission is to destroy the democracy of this country. But rather, my job is to preserve it by ensuring that the national population is kept informed and educated on what this government, of which I am a proud member, is doing and will continue to do for them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as the proud member of Parliament for Diego Martin Central, I am excited to be working with my colleagues in the coming year to improve the lives of constituents of Diego Martin Central, and speaking as a parent, particularly the young people of Diego Martin Central.
Honourable Member, you have about 3 more minutes of your initial speaking time. However, you have an additional 10 minutes. If you care to avail yourself. So
I may use some of it, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Proceed.
So, from the Minister of Trade and Industry, with all the incentives and apprenticeship programs that I'm sure she will expand during her presentation, to the Minister of Youth Development and National Service, and the many programs available on offer at his ministry, from Amplify to YAP, and every letter of the alphabet in between, it seems, to the Minister of Sport and Community Development for programs like Empower and agencies like Self-Help and the Export Centres Company Limited, and to the Minister of Labour for the on-the-job training program. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as a member of Parliament for Diego Martin Central, I look forward to continuing work with the Ministers of Works and Transport the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, the Minister of Public Utilities, of Education, of Housing and Urban Development, and others, to improve the physical infrastructure of the constituency as well. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the opportunities are there for those who are willing to participate in the journey of self-improvement through lifelong learning. Coming out of a very difficult few years, and through the prudent fiscal management of the economy through those years, we are now poised to emerge stronger than before. But it is now more than ever that we as a people must stop listening to the dog whistles, the mudslinging, the misinformation, the parading of conspiracy and self-serving opinion as fact, and focus on the path ahead and the journey to a best possible future state that this government, of which I am a part, is committed to completing with all the citizens of this country. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thank you.
I now recognize the member for Kumutu Manzelina.